On today's show, we're discussing a 1909 classic, two schools that are beloved by fans of hardwood history. We look back at the legendary coaches, players, uniforms, and amazing gameplay. Join us as we break down Georgetown versus UMass in the 1996 Elite Eight. Now, on to the show. Welcome to the 1909 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Meyer. I'm here with my co-host slash guest tonight, Robert Wire, and we are breaking down UMass versus Georgetown, the 1996 Elite Eight. This was actually the first of these 99 classics that we did way back when, over a year ago, and we were breaking down the first game of this season, UMass versus Kentucky, and we brought this one up, and I'm going to let throw it to Robert to kind of set the scene of this game and why we are circling back to UMass, besides the fact that 99 has released the UMass shorts from this game.
Well, I think it's a game that was a big game. It was the Elite Eight game that year, and it was Allen Iverson versus Camby, two of the biggest names in college basketball that year. UMass was ranked number one most of the year. They were going against one of the flashiest players in college basketball, in Iverson. And Iverson had said during the season that he really wanted to play UMass because they were number one, so he could see where he was really at.
Yeah, I absolutely love, like, you hit it on the nose. It's Marcus Camby versus Allen Iverson. And the weird thing is that I think Marcus Camby is the better player at this point, but Iverson is so iconic that he almost overshadows him with just kind of his persona and like just swagger walking in there. But Marcus Camby is unbelievable in this game. Like those two are the absolute standouts in this game. But as far as team play, I was shocked at how amazing this UMass team was, and they started the season incredibly. I've actually got a clip here. We can listen to Coach Cal and kind of the little breakdown of how they got to this point in the season, because they had quite a run to start, and then they lost, and then they rebounded. So let's listen to that clip.
I'm looking at this saying they're not carried away with themselves. They don't seem to be pressured into having to win games. I keep telling them, hey, we lose, we're 26-1. Who cares? I mean, we're still fine. They're playing in practice hard. They're caring about one another. There's no friction on the team that we need to bring them back together, bring them down to earth. I don't see a purpose in a loss right now.
So the number one team in the nation, UMass, plays host to arch rival George Washington.
With talk of an undefeated season reaching a crescendo, the Minutemen finally tripped up in late February against nemesis George Washington.
George Washington was always the thorn in our side. They always seemed to play us tough and always seemed to beat us. We had 26 in a row. They came in our building and beat us. I'm still upset about that one.
The biggest surprise to me was that the one regular season game they lost was at home. I didn't think that was going to happen. But that particular day wasn't their day. John got ejected from the game, and they probably would have lost even if he hadn't have been.
I think that's the only game I've ever been thrown out of in my coaching career, before or after. I've deserved to be thrown out of other games. That one I didn't.
Coach Calipari was ejected for the first time in his career during that loss, but the Minutemen would rebound. They'd win their next 9 games before the national semifinals.
So what a crazy season where you've got 26-game winning streak to start, that just speed bump, and then 9 in a row. But Georgetown was, their own team too. They were coming in off kind of an excellent season too.
Yeah, it just, to me, like doing a bunch of research on this was kind of weird because UMass was the number one team in the nation and a 26 winning streak, but they just were like the team that was more of the vets, the one that was the total package, where Georgetown was more of the elite talent, but can they figure out how to put it together? And I felt like doing this stuff that it really gave me a lot of respect for UMass as far as Cal really put a team together that worked perfect with Camby as far as it separated the floor to give him an area to work with, because the shooters and their defense was unbelievable in the game that we watched. But I did read something pretty interesting about that UMass. They went on that 26-game winning streak, but before the season started, they did their expedition. They lost to a team, I think it was Converse All-Stars, a bunch of players they threw together to play them in an expedition. And I don't remember the final score, but I know that they lost. They lost, and Cal was mad, and Camby said that they weren't any better. I think maybe that was their wake-up call. They got them jump-started because they played Kentucky a week and a half later, and they were number one in the nation, and they beat them.
You lose an exhibition game like that. It can be a wake-up call. But you hit on something there, and you brought this up, and I'm curious to see what you think of this, because I'm looking through some of these stats. Which team do you think had returned the highest percentage of their offense?
See, I would think it was UMass, just because they had the most seniors and juniors as far as that contribute to the team. But the way you're setting me up, I would think that maybe it was Georgetown, because they had the athletes as far as they had the go-to guys.
Yeah, I was actually kind of blown away by how much. It was 71% of the scoring for Georgetown, and I think it was like 58% for. So it's not like they're not an experienced team, but clearly Georgetown too, even though they were younger, they still had that core group that had been together. So there wasn't a lot of turnover. I think Victor Page, there was a couple, freshmen that contribute in this game, but they weren't as green as maybe the announcers and people might think. They had been together the year before for the most part, and brought that back. And they had this unique style where they were so aggressive and, tough-minded, and they had this huge front line where, I think that it seemed like insurmountable for UMass, because you see Camby, who got kind of beat up the year before, and that was kind of his struggle, is that he's kind of slight. But he really showed in this game, I thought.
Yeah. What I was going to say is it might seem a little bit proportionate worse, because how many points did Iverson score? So, you got Iverson, and he obviously was a ball-dominated guard. So just him coming back was probably 33% of their offense?
Probably.
At that time, because the scores weren't as high most of the time.
Yeah.
So if you averaged 20-some points a game, I can't remember what he averaged, but they probably only scored 66.
Sure.
So that's already a big chunk. And then Harrington, he was back too, right? So he probably scored I don't know what he did his freshman year, but it was probably 10 or 15 points, I'm guessing. So just them two together. And then Williams, I don't know if was it his first year or second year?
Who's that?
The Junkyard Dog.
Oh, no, that's his senior year.
Yeah, but he was a JUCO transfer.
Right, but he had been there the year before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
them are three really good players.
They are.
And then White.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They had been together, but I guess that's what I was pushing back against, is that UMass seems like this veteran team, but Georgetown had been together, too. Is Othello Harrington, Trace Jackson Davis, is Trace Jackson Davis Othello reincarnate? Because I couldn't get that out of my head.
I see that.
Left-handed, a little slow, a little awkward.
I feel like Trace is a little bit faster, maybe a little bit smoother.
Homer.
But no, obviously I'm an IU fan, so I would, but I think it just seems like from watching this game, I didn't watch a bunch on Harrington. I know he played in the NBA and stuff, so but it was a different NBA back then.
Yeah.
You could get away with only shooting the inside left hook.
Could you? I don't think
post
you could.
Player.
Not if you're going up against Marcus Camby, because I had that.
Well, not in this game, but I was talking about the NBA.
He looked absolutely outclassed by Marcus Camby.
Camby was just.
He looked terrified every time Camby was on him. I had it written down immediately when he gets the ball, he like throws up that half hook and gets it sent right back in his face.
Camby was just unbelievable in this game.
The contrast to that was as soon as Camby was out, I forget who they put on him, but whoever they put on him, he went to work and scored like immediately.
In the second half.
As soon as Camby was out.
Got his 4th foul.
Yeah, so they switched somebody on him, and Othello went right at him and scored. And I'm like, where's this guy been all game? Like, he looked terrified when Camby was on him.
Well, I mean, I would have been too. Camby was just everywhere.
He
like
was
this
everywhere.
game, he was just. We'll talk about it more, but he was just a beast.
No doubt. You mentioned the number of pros too. Georgetown 4 pros on this team, but I think it's a UMass. What I loved about this game, UMass. If you're a UMass fan, put on those UMass shorts, wear them with pride, because this is like the quintessential college basketball team. Calipari has these guys playing such a college style where they're pressing. They are methodical on offense, swinging the ball to the corners for threes or just being patient, working it to Camby. And those 2 guards, their defense, oh man. I mean, you do not see like that kind of just ball. You can't anymore.
Oh no.
Like hawking the ball. Victor Page, besides Othello looking scared, Victor Page was completely lost in this game. He might as well not have played.
I agree. Like I told you, I think I texted you, that was the definition of a team.
Yes.
Is what UMass. I mean, they just had it all. I mean, yeah, Camby was the inside guy, and maybe you would have said that, it would have been nice to have a guy like Iverson, but they didn't need anybody like that because they worked the ball around so well. It's like I said earlier, it made it easier on Camby because they were such a good team that they couldn't double team him as much as they probably would have liked, because I'm probably going to say his name wrong. Is it
Travieso?
Travieso.
Yep.
I mean, that guy, I looked up, I didn't realize that he had shot 7 threes a game for the season.
Right?
Like, and hit 3. Like, he was like a 40%.
Ahead of his time.
That is like, back then, that's like unheard of. Like, did Ray Allen even do that back then?
I don't know.
Probably
not that many.
Honestly, he was probably the best 3-point shooter in college basketball.
He might have been.
I mean, that's like, I just couldn't get over that. That was just, to me, that blew me away that he shot that much, and maybe that's just because Cal, let him, because back then, that wasn't really the norm, right? You didn't shoot that many threes, in a game.
That's our 19-9 moment of this game. It's the shooting of Carmelo Travieso. It was unbelievable. And I think what was so cool about it was the way he got it too, because it's such a classically college way. Like, he was not pulling up like Steph Curry from 30 feet out. He's like slowly runs to the corner. They swing,
plays,
hits it. He hits that open 3 or where the guy is late rotating. It was classic and just kind of drawn up and worked
the double
great.
Screen on the baseline,
Exactly,
coming around,
that staggered screen.
He's coming and curling, pulls it up and shooting. I mean, it was, like I said, this UMass team, the more I watch them, the more, I wish that I would have watched more back then. I mean, It was just really impressive
100%
how good they were.
All right, I've got a quote from you from Calipari. I wanted to get your reaction to see what you think he means by this. He says, "Georgetown has an unbelievable team," said Calipari. "They play like a typical Georgetown team. Allen Iverson, Georgetown's All-American guard who scored 32 points against Texas Tech, is fabulous. John Thompson has done a tremendous job with Iverson. He's really letting him display the talent he has." So 2 questions. 1, what is typical Georgetown? And 2, what do you think he meant by display the talent he has? Like, what do those 2 things mean to you?
The second one, I think, means that he just let him be Allen Iverson. He didn't try to control him as far as his shot selection or anything. He just, what Allen wanted to do, he had the green light. So he could do whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because if he plays free, that's just the best way Allen Iverson was going to play, right? If you try to control him, then it's just not going to work.
Do you think that hurt? Do you think that hurt Georgetown in this game, though?
In this game, I really just felt like Georgetown was outmatched. I really do, because it wasn't because of a talent.
Because they stuck with him in the first half. Iverson's got 17 points.
But Iverson was great at the end, second half, or the first half, to make it close.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And in the second half, he can't do anything.
Well, it's because it was the complete opposite what Georgetown could do for Iverson that Camby got from his teammates.
So you think it's the adjustments that Calipari made at halftime, or what did you see?
No, I think that it was more of just like the footprint of the teams. Like, I felt like that Georgetown had Harrington, White, Williams, they just didn't have like to separate the court. You know, like they were all big guys.
Right.
And then you had Iverson, which was trying to fight against all the UMass guards. Right. So it was like him one-on-one because the floor wasn't spread because they didn't have the shooters like UMass had. Where Camby was able to have more dominance because if you just trapped him, like then the shooters are wide open. And it was like even like the guy Dingle and Bright had really good games. So like there was nothing that Georgetown could do to single out and try to change the way UMass was playing. Where I felt like Georgetown, Harrington played good there for a stretch whenever Camby was out. But besides that, like Williams, he's just, to me, like watching that game, he was the kind of like a tweener. Like he was a good rebounder. He could kind of dribble. He was big, but he didn't have a jump shot. He couldn't shoot from the outside. No. So the respect factor of him being out there didn't draw people away. They would probably leave him open if he was, you know.
Well, they needed to get into transition too, and they just weren't getting any transition buckets. Like that was what the press does. And again, what's so surprising is that I guess, you know, maybe it's just because of foul trouble. It's just as simple as that. But it seems like that press is so effective in college basketball because you get people away from those transition buckets, and they just, you know, it gives them so little time. Even in a time when the shot clock's longer, it still seems like they're struggling to set anything up. You see Iverson probe a ton into the lane, but like you said, he gets there and there's like three guys. There's three guys standing there waiting for him. And I love that you pointed out Dana Dingle and Dante Bright, because I think that always something that is often overlooked is the impact of role players. And you don't want to overstate it because Camby was awesome, Travieso was awesome, Padilla was awesome in this game. But those two guys really stood out to me as guys that made an impact. And on championship teams, you know, whether you want to laugh at Caruso for the Lakers or whoever, those guys tend to play important roles because they have to fill in those gaps where you can't lean on them. And I think you're right for Georgetown. Who was that guy like that you could point to that, hey, that, you know, Iverson got his, even though it was 23-17 in the first half, he still got his basic numbers.
But he worked really hard.
He did. That's what I mean, because there was nobody else. Othello was overmatched, so he wasn't getting any. So they needed Williams or somebody else to step up in a big way, and they just did. They didn't get that on their team.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point about the role players, and I feel like they don't get the respect they deserve. You know, like I said, like, you know, it helps the superstars shine. Yeah. If they're able to open it up, you know, it's like, you know, just as a reference, it's like the NBA. If you put a really good player on a really bad team, they can shut that one player down.
Yep.
You know, but if they're surrounded by good players, then it's almost impossible to stop them. You know, and that's kind of what Camby was like in this game. Like when the beginning of that second half, I mean, God, he was just a beast. Like 8 straight points, blocking, like they had nothing.
Here, I've got 2 quotes. This is great from Iverson. Kind of can sum up the game pretty quickly. All right, first, this is before the game. It doesn't matter who's in there, Iverson said. I'm going to the hole anyways. I'm not going to change, even if there's 2 or 3 Marcus Cambys in there. This is before the game.
He's confident. He's very confident.
Okay, this is afterwards. They shut us down defensively at times when we needed to score. I mean, it's just that simple, right? Like, and this is from Padilla. I love this. This is again about that team. So he says, we always run onto the court. We run after timeouts to show people that we're still working hard. We're not tired. We're not letting down. It is that mentality. And, you know, you can say what you want about Cal now. And, of course, as an IU fan, maybe I don't love him. But I love that he was able to instill that mentality in a team. I mean, that shows leadership. It shows just like to get togetherness, and it's such a quintessentially college thing to get those guys to just run onto the floor, even when they are tired, and to make sure they're not showing it to anyone.
I feel like teams like this one, I know that number one teams don't come along very long, but I'm just being, even at that level they're at, you just don't see very many teams that play like this anymore. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of, you got stars and they had Camby, but they played like a complete team, and you just don't see that anymore, Harley. I mean, like Cal, he doesn't. You know, we have our own thing about Cal because we're IU fans, so I don't need to get into that. But he doesn't play the same way because he gets young guys and tries to get him to work by the end of the year. This was a team that he had built up, and he did an unbelievable job piecing it together.
Yes.
So.
All right, well, let's hit some of the categories as we get going here. Big picture context. So we did this a little bit, but what did you think of the coaching matchup? Young Cal versus John Thompson. What did you feel? Did you feel like Thompson's on his way out, or he was maybe overmatched by the dynamism of Cal, or is it a pretty even matchup?
I mean, I think that it was an up and comer in Cal, and I mean Thompson had won a championship.
Yeah.
I mean, Thompson, has won a championship. I mean, I don't think that he was overmatched as far as coaching. I just don't think he had anything he could run that was gonna stop this UMass team. I don't see any coaching changes because sometimes you see a coaching change where you say, well, this guy got off and we should have stopped him. But I mean, on this game, I can't pinpoint one scenario that maybe would have changed the course of the game. It just felt like from the beginning that Georgetown stayed in it because...
Was there a way for Georgetown to slow it down or muck it up more? Because, I mean, the contrast is like if UMass is going to hit all those threes, like you're going to lose, right? Like they hit so...
Yeah, but it wasn't just that, though. They take care of the ball.
That's what I mean.
They play great defense.
But when you get up and you're like playing tough defense, like and you're Georgetown where you're like going to score 2-pointers only, like... a 10-point lead is really like a 15 or 18-point lead.
And the thing is, their press didn't work that well just because they had 2 guards that were very experienced, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So, once that happened, they could break it so easily. I mean, do you really just keep going to it and give them easy buckets?
I don't know.
I mean, I think the only way this game possibly changes is that at the beginning there was just so many turnovers. So many missed layups by Georgetown.
Yeah.
Like maybe if they capitalized at the beginning and put pressure on them.
Buckner even flames Junkyard Dog. He's like, he's really talented, gets to the hole, but can't make a layup. I was like, oh my God.
I remember that. I was just like, I mean,
killing him.
At the beginning, they missed a lot of
he got fouled,
easy
though.
layups.
It was an and one.
No, there was another one that he just missed.
Yeah,
he
did.
I was like,
I don't remember that about him because I remember him being so tough. I don't remember him missing a bunch of layups.
Well, I don't really remember him being an offensive player at all.
No.
So, he was kind of asked to go out of his
He was versatile.
But he was, running. I was really impressed by how he was dribbling on the outside. I didn't know that about him.
He seems like a new type of player. That the guy, 6'9", that was unusual for a guy that big to be leading the break.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was definitely he was ahead of his era as far as dribbling, not shooting.
What about the youth versus experience? So we'll circle back to that a little bit. So do you think that there's something in college basketball still today where that experience matters, like that togetherness of maybe not the scoring, but the time, just literally the time that a team spends together? Can that make create an advantage for them?
I mean, I believe so. I think that my ideal perfect scenario for a team, I can't really say it about IU because we haven't done it for so long, but for other teams, I always feel like they always have some vets on the team that are solid. They're going to come every day. And then you always have your young, stars. But they always usually have guys that are reliable. Most champions have those guys that they might not be they might be the junior or senior that was a 4-star, but maybe they've got so good at the point that where they're not going to play in the NBA, but they're really good college basketball players.
They're the guy that's running on the court,
they're
leading
the team, and they're the ones getting these stars in the position to score. They're the ones that when the time that some teams would choke, they're the ones settling the team down, saying, "Hey, it's going to be fine. We've been here before. We can do this. Just relax. Just play good defense so we can get back in the game." Where I feel like you have to have that. Yeah. Or else, I mean, wouldn't Kentucky have 20 championships with all their 5-star recruits they get every year?
You would think so. It's I think it's not just that, but it's so hard to blend talent. Again, just amassing talent is one thing, but then blending it into a team is a whole nother skill. I mean, they have to do it with the dream team at a certain talent level. I think that it doesn't matter as much, or a talent differential. But if the talents are pretty close, and you can even with a really talented group of freshmen, because they're, you got the egos at play, and you've got their skill sets that aren't necessarily caught up with their athleticism and some of the other things that could make them better down the line, you can make up for it. That's where, Harrington, as soon as Camby's off him, he goes to work, right?
Yeah.
In the NBA, there's just another Camby there,
Yeah,
it's just different. But I don't know. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Design Corner. What design stuff did you see besides those UMass and Georgetown uniforms that you can get on 199.com for the holiday season right now?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say one thing about that. I gotta get those Georgetown Blues.
Oh man, I know.
I mean, after watching this, it's just driving me nuts.
I know.
But no, I mean, I absolutely love being, a almost 40-year-old. The cutoff shirts underneath the jerseys. I mean, that was just so, took me right back to like whenever I was a kid. I mean, it was just that part I love. You just don't see that very often anymore. Now all you see usually is the tank top.
Yeah, well, you've got the
tank tops,
right.
That,
the Nike Elite stuff. Yeah.
So it's just I guess it's kind of like the old school, like. I mean, I guess for us it wasn't old school, but it was old school now. Like, you just don't see people doing that.
Well, what's weird is that people don't realize you couldn't just go out and get a Nike Elite things or even a cutoff at a store. Like, they didn't just have like cutoff shirts that you had to buy a T-shirt and just cut the sleeves off.
Oh, yeah.
That was it.
That was an art in itself.
And they were doing that in these games, which is great.
I know. I mean, I can just remember being a kid and trying to cut perfectly around the seam to make it look just right. And then the first time you'd go for a layup, somebody to rip it. But then you have to rip the other side to match that side. Mean, there's just a lot of stories when it comes to that. But I really enjoyed that.
What about the shoes? What shoes you like? I had a couple.
I mean, I like the Jordans.
Yeah, the 11s, of course.
Yeah, I really like those.
Unbelievable.
You had the kids on there, but I don't remember seeing those.
Those were a personal favorite for me, those Zoom Flight, because they had they look like space shoes because they got the big bubbles.
Oh, yeah, I had those.
Those were
now
so
you bring them
cool.
up. Yeah, they were really cool.
And Kid was just so fast. Like they look like fast shoes. They look like shoes someone fast. Those had a weird. I might have got a bootleg pair. I don't know, but I had a pair of those later. It was like a retro, I thought, and they rubbed like my ankle. I tried to play in them, did not work. It's one of those things where
some
learn.
Shoes work and
maybe
some shoes
you
don't.
shouldn't play in retros. Maybe they're for just the look.
Yeah, I remember I bought a pair of I don't remember which Jordans they were. They were the two-tone that he wore with the Bulls. They had the black on top with the red on the bottom, like the suede. Yeah. And I had those when I was younger, and I played with those things forever. They lasted. I bought the retros, and they were like, I bet you they lasted a summer, and they were done. I was like, come on now, like. Because they're so much more expensive now than they were back then.
So much more, I know. Well, yeah, you're like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. Now you're like, oh my gosh, $180, and yeah.
Did you take the time to watch any of the commercials?
I did. I was gonna ask you if you too, and I loved because a lot of the games we watch don't have the halftime show. This halftime show was awesome. Did you watch it?
I didn't. And
oh my God!
Before I came, I saw you updated it, and I was like. Because I just passed it because we never talk about the halftime show.
I know.
Well,
they don't usually have
was
it.
on, and I was like, well, I don't have time.
So we just talked to the 5-star guys before, in the podcast before this, and one of the things they said was so cool is listening back to those speeches from famous coaches, and Coach K was one of them. And this was like that for me. I was like, oh my gosh, like he is breaking down the first half. He shows that like swing around to the corner. He shows Camby the way that he is like off of Othello, and then as soon as he's onto him, he's like traveling with and it is so cool to just hear Coach K breaking it down in the studio, because I think that he's become, and all these coaches have become so ensconced or enshrined that they almost can't share their knowledge again.
Yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't. For as far as I know, I don't watch a lot of halftime shows anymore. But they've got the former players on there. That they don't show coaches. They don't usually have the
coaches
anymore.
anymore.
Coaches won't.
They're
do
like
it
at
anymore.
a higher level.
Yeah,
almost.
they don't have time for that.
Yeah,
where in the past they would come in.
Or maybe they just get paid too much now.
Yeah, it could be. They probably were like, hey, come in and you can make $10,000 if you come in and talk during halftime. They're like, oh, sure.
Sure, yeah.
And now
exactly.
they're like, how much are you going to give me? No, I'm good.
Yeah, Roy Williams, where we heard he was selling calendars out of his trunk to make salary. He would have been like, oh, halftime show? Definitely.
I'll break it all down.
I'll bring you a free calendar, too.
I'll even do commercials.
All right, let's. We got two more. We already hit the 99 moment. So, what aged the best for you in this? I think for me, it was just the style of play. Like it was just an unbelievable college basketball game. Even though it wasn't super close at the end, it never felt like a blowout. It felt like one of those games where Georgetown was just because they made that run in the first half. That at any moment Iverson was gonna break out and they were gonna make a run, and they never did. But they were so close, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and like we've said already a couple times, the UMass team, you put that team in college basketball today, and they're still just as dominant. I
100%.
You know, so like that hasn't aged at all. Their style and everything, and actually, if you put that team, they might dominate more.
I
just
think
because
so.
of the fundamentals, like of the to me, like it's more of a skill positions now, and not just the full fundamentals of the game. And the screening, I don't think is as good as it was back then. Like, cause it's more one-on-one and stuff. Where I feel like UMass, I don't know how the defense would have worked, just because the rules are so much different now.
They would have had to change it up because
I don't know
they would have all fouled out.
Yeah, I don't know if the point guards for UMass would have been fast enough if they couldn't have been that aggressive to go with the players today. Because you could bump them and kind of slow them down.
Probably depends on the matchup.
Yeah, but could you have stopped Allen Iverson right now because you couldn't touch him? Everything would have been a foul.
How many Allen Iversons are in college basketball?
No, I'm just saying if this game was played today,
right? They might
with
lose.
The rules.
They
like
might
it would
lose.
have been really hard to stop Allen Iverson because they would have called everything.
Yeah. He would have shot a lot more free throws.
A lot of threes. Because he wouldn't have laid a lot and got knocked down.
He got knocked out.
And he was just like, what's going on here?
He'd be on the ground, like, looking
up.
Like,
yeah, that would have been fouls.
Any foul here?
And they would have been trying to figure out how to stop him.
Oh, man. All right, let's end on this. Would this game, this is a fun one, would this game be better with Bill Walton on the call? So this had an iconic, to me, tandem. Gus Johnson, who I love. Josh will argue with me that he likes Billy Packer better. But Gus Johnson, I love him calling play-by-play. And then Quinn Buckner as the color guy.
Oh, I absolutely love Quinn Buckner. I'm a Pacer fan, so, I mean, I wouldn't change him at all.
You wouldn't change it?
No, I wouldn't change Gus either. I mean, it was just so
you wouldn't throw Bill Walton in there?
No, I mean, I listened to Bill during that Super 8 or whatever tournament that IU was in.
The Maui Invitational in Nashville.
He has his moments where he's really enjoyable to listen to. And then it's like some moments where they brought in a guest.
Yeah.
And they're talking to it and they're splitting the screen and I can't remember the guest's name. It had nothing to do with basketball.
Yeah.
It's some singer. And I was like, I mean, are they really showing a singer right now during the game? But I mean, Walton he is good and he's definitely entertaining. And maybe during the last 6 minutes or so when the game was kind of out of reach,
right?
Then maybe he would have been fun to listen to a story about him, probably talking about Patrick Ewing or some ex players, from the teams. That would have been pretty exciting. But I like both Gus.
He would have loved Marcus Camby would have been Bill Russell by the end of this game.
He just reminds me of myself.
Yeah, no doubt.
He's playing the game of life.
He's not that far off.
He's playing the game of life, and that's what I go by.
Well, I got the call of the game for me. So let's go to that real quick.
Is that basket good? Oh no!
Yes, it is. Allen Iverson.
But fella, please. I mean, I thought he was checked off. I thought UMass had him exactly where they wanted him to check him off. Carmela's right there in front of him. Little contact. He goes up. There's a reach. And they call it on Travieso. Dante Bright tries to get an offensive foul call. But you see Iverson, who's been trying to get some foul calls from the officials, got going on a little roll. Got to keep an eye on him now. You may have to run two after him just to get the ball out of his hands. He's starting to heat up.
And they did. I love that though. Young fella, please.
I mean, it was an unbelievable shot. I mean, we didn't talk about the dunk at the beginning of the game.
Oh, I did have that down.
Man, I tell you, it just shows like how
it didn't even
athletic.
It didn't even look like he was going to dunk it. And then he goes up like two hands off 2 feet.
Like it just blows you away. Like you're just like this little guy goes in over the towers and just. I mean, it was definitely a tournament moment. You
It
know,
was.
where like it was something they would have been playing even after they lost. I'm sure they showed that again during that, the Final Four,
For sure.
showing that dunk.
Yep. For sure. Well, we got anything else? I think that's all I had for this one. I think we have to, though, at some point finish up and do the UMass versus Kentucky to kind of bookend this season, because that's an unbelievable game too, and just kind of an interesting way that just how breaking down why they didn't get all the way to the championship.
Now, did you guys? I don't remember. Did you guys do the Syracuse?
No, we did not.
I think maybe we should do that one too.
All right,
And I think we should talk a little bit about Wallace and how great he was.
let's do it.
In
those Syracuse
run.
shorts.
In the Syracuse shorts, exactly.
All
There's
right.
just so many teams in this 96,
I know.
man. It's just crazy.
That's good. Whenever anyone doesn't see good games on, or games this season get canceled for COVID, go on YouTube. We'll put the links in the show notes for this. Go watch this game. Like, you will have fun watching this game. Like, I legit enjoyed every minute watching this game. Even the commercials and the halftime show. I didn't watch all the commercials, but I love some of them. They're just funny. And then the halftime show, definitely watch that, because it is awesome to watch Coach K breaking it down. It feels special.
I agree. Definitely watch some of the commercials. It's crazy to, like that. I watched 96. What was it? Monte Carlo commercial.
Yeah.
And I was
It seems like 100 years
It threw me
ago.
back to Days of Thunder, the movie, and I was like, man, I want to
my
watch that now.
Days of Thunder.
My favorite movie. Man.
All right, man. Let's get out of here. Thank you for listening to the 99 podcast with HVS, the High Volume Shooters. For more information, check out the blog at 99.com under HVS. And while you're there, do yourself a favor and pick up some retro college shorts.